Alright, stream is live. Now to just announce this everywhere. Hello everyone. This everywhere. By the way, I am reading the YouTube chat at the same time, but I'm going to be responding to questions asked in the classroom chat on my Discord server, which is available to any patrons, and the classroom channel is available to anybody $5 who donates $5 or more for the my Patreon. I've announced it everywhere. I can be your angel or your devil. And it's kind of funny though. Like I get comments about my voice all the time. Yet the most that I ever wind up voice acting is like Sans from Undertale. Hey, kid, me, your buddy, Sans. I really fucking love ketchup. Hey kid, I'm a computer. Stop all the downloading. Alrighty. What's up, everybody? It's Critical today. Well, it's not actually Critical. His imposter, his evil twin, Bitical. Alright, so I'm going to give it 3 more minutes for people to kind of filter in here, and then I'm going to start the lesson. Got some questions lined up from the Patreon server. And then yeah. If I wind up running out of questions and stuff from patrons and stuff, and I cover everything in the time span, this is going to go on for about 30 minutes to an hour. Then I will start taking questions from YouTube and answer those. Use those to kind of guide what I discuss and talk about. So let me get myself a big ass canvas space. Oh yeah, in addition to voicing Sans, I've also voiced Shadow the Hedgehog apparent in Project SNT's Sonic fan comics that she dug up from her childhood. Decided to roast and voice act. Funny. Alright, one more minute. We don't talk about that lucky girl. Alright, who's the cunt bag of dicks who decided to downvote me live stream? I'll fucking pump ye. Alright, so, kind of quick, go in here. Yes, in session. Yay. Alrighty. So, as I said, the way this is going to work, patrons have the ability to post in the classroom channel, which you can see at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. They're able to ask any questions about what they want me to cover in terms of art stuff, and I will basically do lessons based on what they state there. I'll be reading the YouTube chat and stuff, as I mentioned, but I'm going to be responding to the classroom chat. I'll only go to the YouTube chat and respond to questions and tutorial stuff there after I've answered all the questions in the Patreon and if there's time remaining. It'll go on for about 30 minutes to an hour, so think of this as basically a lecture, essentially. So with that being said, do any of the patrons have any questions they would like to ask? Because what I'm going to first start off with is Darkhold Legion asked a while back, actually. He wanted to know how to handle proportions when drawing. So, pull up something. There's this thing called Pose Maniacs, and I love this thing. It's great. So, like, basically the way this works is just click Start. It'll wind up. Gotta try and draw what you see there. Gotta try and do it as fast as you can. The point of this is just to be expressive, and basically doing gesture sketching this will help you keep your proportions consistent, help you learn anatomy better. In general, it just really helps overall. And you basically just kind of do this for 5 minutes at a time, maybe more. You just keep it loose. Don't try to make it like overly detailed and try to make it overly realistic. Just do what works. The point is basically you should see the expressiveness in the pose and stuff like that. So that basically will kind of help you start getting a grasp on like how to handle anatomy and reference stuff like that. For proportions then, when it comes to character design, once you've got the handle on how to represent or basically tackle like gesturing and stuff like that, and you kind of have a better handle on anatomy, then you can start screwing with proportions. Realistically, when you have a character, usually a human character will wind up being about like anywhere between 5 to 8 heads tall. It can vary wildly depending on style influences that you're using. As you can see, some people, they like to do stick figures. Like, I don't like doing that. I personally like to use a little bit more volume shapes to kind of try and figure out what I'm doing. Some key things for like little reference lines: the hands should go about halfway through down the thigh, and then the bicep and the forearm should both be around the same length, so there. And I personally don't really draw the biceps until after I'm ready to actually start like filling it in. If you want to see how many heads tall this is, that it can always vary as much as you want. This drawing in particular, got 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 heads tall. So, like I said, 5 to 8. If you want to start getting interesting with character design, basically the fewer heads tall a character is, the more chibi-ish they'll be. Basically kind of like big heads. Heads are cute. And I mean, like, as you can see here, I'm not like drawing in the individual gaps for the forearm. I just kind of keep it all one part. I kind of tend to do that more for like beer stuff and smaller characters. But as you can see here, this character is only about 4 heads tall. That kind of shows like how you can get a relationship between character height and stuff like that. Let me actually make the canvas bigger. Not bigger. So then you've probably, I have a feeling a lot of people have seen this trick before. When you have like a character's body and you know where you want their, and you want to try and basically draw their arm or their hands and stuff like that, basically kind of doodle out where you want the hand to go. Draw it as it. Draw the shoulder, and then instead of trying to basically go like this, hope that you get it right, because that can be inaccurate, draw a straight line between them and draw a intersecting line that's about 90 degrees. This won't really work if you're doing foreshortening or perspective, but it'll work in most other cases. Then what you want to do is then you can basically connect this line so. And you basically want to try and find a sweet spot, which is going to vary depending on what angle you're at. If you're doing it at too shallow, like if you just go straight, you'd actually be relying on foreshortening there. Like, kind of connect the line like that. Meanwhile, if you're going to go straight, this kind of implies that his hand is sticking out, and you'd probably want to make this bigger as a result. Kind of like looking out at you. Then kind of getting the lengths and stuff gets a little wonky because as you can see visually, this is a lot smaller than this, but they both look like they're the same length because it's coming out at you. So yeah, that's kind of just some weird complications regarding foreshortening and arms and stuff like that. What else is there for proportion that I can cover really quick? By the way, for patrons, if you guys want to ask questions in the classroom chat or comment or anything, I'm reading that actively as well. So feel free if you guys want to get specific at all. As I mentioned, one thing that'll stay consistent for the drawings is that usually the hands will wind up sitting around midway through the thigh. That's going to wind up being something consistent regardless of the body shape. Likewise, you'll notice that the core of the body, hips are about the midpoint, not including the head. Actually, I guess including the head. Get it right here. Like right here, for instance, 4 or a little almost 4, where you wind up getting the hips, and then you have about 3.5 there. Um, my legs are about are a little bit more than half of the body length, or legs to hip. Then the torso is only about like maybe. Actually, that'll kind of vary depending on the body shape as well. I guess facial proportions. One thing you might notice that a lot of artists do is that they'll put like the cross lines on the circle, and that basically makes a face. And cross lines essentially are used as reference points. This is halfway through down the face, and then you draw another one that's halfway through. Go halfway down there, that's where the mouth could go, and halfway between, about where you'd have the eyes. Also where the ears would, etc. You don't want to do that. You don't have to do that. If you don't want to be real, if you're not trying to be realistic or you're not going for realism, like one of the characters I design, Pivot, got a very shallow chin. This is her head shape. Kind of just draw this reference line a little bit lower instead of doing division practices. The eyes kind of just sit on that line, but this line basically kind of connects where this little chin or these cheekbones wind up connecting to the head itself. One thing about eyes, the lower you set the eyes, the younger the character is going to look. Also going to be more anime. One of those eyes is much shorter than the other one, so instead of redrawing it, I'm just going to expand it a little. Expand eye. Yeah, that's basically how you kind of cut face proportions. Notice that if I move this lower and give him a forehead, now this character looks a little younger. Copy this really quick. I'm going to undo all that. I guess I'll just go fuck myself then. Move the facial features lower, it basically will make the character look a little bit younger. Move them higher, it'll make them look a little bit older. So you can use that to kind of tweak the age. Likewise, if you also shrinking the chin a little bit can also have a similar effect, because kids tend to have a little bit rounder faces. Yeah. So that's a few things about proportion. Was there anything that anybody wanted to ask, Patreon chat or otherwise, regarding proportion as well? Or was there anything else, or any other topics that I should cover, or anything like that? For patrons as well, if you guys have also done any art that you'd want me to take a look at, critique, if you don't mind it going up on screen and stuff, I'd be willing to do that as well. Anything from like, how do you draw X, or what do you do for character design aspect X, or stuff like that. Hands. Do hands. Looks like DSMK2 is also typing up something as well, so get to his. Oh yeah, he's asking about hands and feet as well. Go figure. That works. Make a new document. Alright, so hands and feet are in short a bitch. I'm a lot better at drawing hands than I am feet, so I'll start with hands. Put a feet in it. So the thing with hands, using references is very helpful with this, and you're going to want to use references until you have a grasp on how to do hands. But essentially, you kind of have the palm, and some people will do it square, some people will do it like a square with two balls, some people will just do it round. I kind of like to do this weird lumpy shape. I don't like to kind of constrain it. It's kind of trapezoidal with a curved top, I guess. Then I kind of use like a circle to basically represent where the thumb is going to go, and that's the socket for the thumb, and it goes around halfway through to the corner, you can see. And then for the fingers, it kind of depends on what expression you want to do. If you want to just do a flat hand, you can just basically treat it like it's a box of French fries. If you're going to do like a curled hand, I would recommend drawing the fingertips first and just kind of lightly doing those where you want them. Just kind of draw the rest of the fucking hand. But like, start with the fingertips and then kind of figure out where the knuckles will go. Or I don't know if those would actually be those aren't the knuckles. Very final joint. There's a formal name for them. I'm good with it. You just kind of connect them down. So, the thing with that's not actually a very good hand, to be totally honest. The thing to remember is each finger is actually a different length. If you actually look at finger lengths, as you can see, here's basically the hand I've drawn. The fingers will basically make an arch with how you do them. This is one of the few times where I'll also say like you can do sticks, stuff to kind of represent them. You just kind of try them out. And then if you look at the top of hands, they're kind of flat, kind of not. Very consistent curve. The other thing to remember is that when hands go down, they don't really like form a flat gap per se, but they don't form like a perfect connection like this either. So it's not like this, not like this either. Kind of like a little bit between them. It's kind of hard to describe, to be totally honest. As far as finger length goes, you can make the fingers as long as you want. For more realistic proportions, the fingers will be about the same length as the palm itself. Though you can vary that drastically if you'd like. Like, one thing I remember from the artist notes for Lilo and Stitch, for instance, they represented hands as the rule of 70-30. And for a lot of human characters, especially ones that had more weight on them, they had short fingers, kind of pudgy hands, kind of cute, chibi-ish. And then for some of the alien characters, they had like narrow palm, had these long, spindly hands. Pretty cool, and it's like it's something subtle that you're not really going to know actually looking at. But the idea basically is that you have only this you only have this little space for the fingers, and they're all really thin, and then you have like this much for the hands or the palms themselves, and it's like really fat. Meanwhile, for the aliens, you have like this narrow space, only about 30%, and then you have this big gap right here or this big section for the fingers, and it's like 30% of the or 70% of the volume. And easier. So that's something about proportions again, and how you can basically vary it. It basically makes things basically just a bit more interesting because you have a bit of dichotomy going on there. And like that's actually another principle that I can go into in a moment. regarding weight distribution and stuff like that with character design. But anyway, going back to hands. So, open palm, yeah, how often are you going to honestly use that? Usually when you're going to draw hands, you're going to be drawing them in weird expressive poses and stuff. So, kind of do the beanbag shape, trapezoidal beanbag shape. The key thing to note is that, let me actually get a picture of a hand. Hand. Here's a hand. It is a good hand. One thing you'll note about the hand is that it has a few key spots, few key areas. Got the thumb, got the ball where the thumb goes, and fingertips. Then you also have this chunk right up here. This area and this area are probably the two most important parts when drawing a hand, and they're what you kind of need to represent. There's also this area right here, but that one will kind of come more naturally, I feel. So basically what I've done here is I have this chunk right here that's the front of the palm, and right here for the back of the palm. Side right here that, again, kind of comes natural. I could also switch these around if I really wanted to, but I'll do that right now. So from that we can basically deduce that the thumb would basically go anywhere in here. Add that. I do my thumbs really simple. I kind of just, when I view a finger from the side, I kind of basically do this weird bevel shape. It's kind of two crescents like this. If you want to be more realistic, you can. It would be like rounded and stuff like that, and it's really complex, but I'm a cartoonist. I don't try to focus solely on realism. If you want to do realism, though, that's kind of what the approach you would take. As you can see down here, thumb is basically divided into these following joints here. So, gonna want to kind of make sure that those are represented. See, I got this joint here, here, and the last joint kind of melds into it all. Because I mean, this is really, really small and really hard to notice, to be totally honest. Look at your own thumb. That third little joint, very, very subtle. Kind of looks like it melds together with this. These look like they're actually together. That's why you can sometimes get away with doing only two joints. And do two joints for hand. Then we have the fingers themselves. I'm going to do a little bit more expressive. So fingers, this is really hard to kind of tutorial on because fingers are kind of just like, you just gotta go. Some tips I would recommend, if you're doing closed fingers, I'm going to do two closed and two pointy. So kind of doing like a 2-finger point. I like to kind of figure out where the, I guess it's the knuckles. I have no idea. I like to figure out where those go first. Just kind of like volume those out, roughly where I think they would be. And then you can just attach them. Key thing to remember as well is that, again, fingers have segments to them. So over here, I've got 1, 2, and then 3. Case for both of these. If you need to, you can kind of obscure things a bit as well. Can also be helpful if you're still kind of new to kind of space out where you want the fingers to attach. This isn't necessary to draw these circles here, but they can help you if you don't know where to attach them to. And then again, I kind of like to start with the fingertips. Then if you need to, you can kind of like pencil out where you path, how you want the fingers to path out. Best fingers that I've ever drawn, but not really enough. And actually, come to think of it, these fingers are actually a little small. Instead of erasing them and redrawing them, because this is a gesture, I'm going to just select them and increase their size. Because you can do that. Don't be afraid to grab stuff and just resize it. Again, we got joint 1, joint 2, 3. Sometimes I'm bad, and when I'm drawing something more cartoony, I actually wind up skipping a joint. That's not good. Didn't do that. But I want to be more loose. I want to do something more cartoony. Key thing to remember is that you're going to want to learn how to do stuff with accurate anatomy before you start simplifying the anatomy. Key thing to note about style is that style is how you simplify and represent anatomy. It's not a replacement for anatomy. So, like, if you're drawing something like a panty and stocking style, like, the one thing that's really noticeable about PSG is just how they do their arms. They don't have any wrists, or the wrists basically go in flush. And everything's basically really simplified. These are all deliberate decisions. So, like, this is a panty and stocking style hand / arm. You can kind of see, again, going back to proportions, because that was a prominent question, and talking about proportions, you can see how basically it starts off really small up top, and this is true for all of them, and it tapers outwards, and it gets wider and wider as things go on. And then everything basically is very hard, very blocky square angles. As far as the hands go, if we were to basically trace over this, now it might not look like a normal human hand, but if we go over this, we can see that there is still the palm about right here. The thumb kind of goes around right here on the bottom side. And we still have the block on the other side, or that padding on the other side, that where the front of the hand would go. And then again, the fingers are about half the length palm, or of the entire hand. These are both consistent still. Which, again, as I pointed out earlier, you can actually vary that if you want, and you don't have to keep them consistent, but no harm in doing so as well. Other things that are deliberate choices is, like I had mentioned, basically when you're drawing the fingers, not to do this. And panty and stocking actually does do that, but it works out in this case because it's a deliberate choice. Because again, the key difference between style and mistakes is style is deliberate. So another stylistic thing that basically panty and stocking decides to do is, instead of having a wrist going here, like, the key thing with the wrists is that obviously the wrist is going to be smaller and that thumb will kind of jut out a bit. This side will be a little bit flusher, but this side will kind of make an angle. Panty and stocking doesn't have that. It's flush all the way through. That's actually something I really like about the style. I think it's very useful. A lot of anime characters, they have really tiny hands, and panty and stocking's like, fuck that, and get big. But anyway, so yeah. Some other stuff. Differences between male and female hands. To be honest, I don't think you'd really notice a lot of the differences unless you're like really going for serious realism. But in general, hands aren't going to be too super diverse. I'm gonna just draw a few hands. Time while I'm also fist. Kind of just see what I'm doing here. Been drawing a lot of fists lately, in a fight scene. But between male and female hands, I don't know if most people would notice the differences. Generally, if you're gonna do like gender differences on hands, male hands are gonna basically be a bit bigger, a bit fatter, maybe hairier, whereas female hands are gonna tend to be a little bit smaller or a little bit more lithe. But those are really subtle differences, in all honesty, and I really wouldn't worry too much about that until, like, unless you're going for like hyper realism. Otherwise, if you're doing like reference drawing or life drawing, or you're just using references and stuff, just kind of imitating what your reference is will probably teach you enough on that. But as you can see, for like a fist, what I did is figured out where I want the knuckles to go, kept them all lined up, all the lines for that, rounded off the tops, and the key thing that I did here is that I kind of did this style, where kind of like, see there's an overlap to kind of create a bit of depth. See as well, fingers got slightly closer together as they got smaller, as well as they got away from the camera. I like to do the knuckles first for fists, because that's the most prominent part. Key thing as well, fists are basically bricks. Bricks with thumbs. What a fist is. And then I just kind of put up. This isn't the best thumb that I've. Yeah. Oh, do it. We're good. Very nice. So, again, just try to use references as much as you can with hands. If you ever have fingers packed together, I would recommend actually drawing those as a single object for the reference, just because it makes it a bit easier to kind of get everything out. Start with if you're having a more open expression hands, like I was drawing before, I'd recommend starting with the palms. If you're doing something more expressive with the fingers, I would start with the fingers. And honestly, start with either or. But that's just what I personally feel is like, it's easier to basically focus on what you're trying to be expressive with. Quick, the pointy finger. Effective. And I feel like I'm drawing a gun. Again, I kind of group these all together. Bad. Looks like you have a baby penis. That didn't come out too terrible. Kind of just eyeballed it. If I had done an actual vanishing point, it probably would have come out a little bit better. Either way, one other thing to note as far as palms go, before I move on to feet. As I mentioned, there was also the technique of using like balls at the bottom. Reasoning for that is, if you look at your hand, that little side of the palm, as well as the thumb area, those kind of round together, and those basically can kind of form two balls. And then some people like to draw those two balls, and then they kind of go over those to basically get the hand shape, and then that's how they get their palm. See, based on those two ball principle. And then they kind of fit. Again, I'm just going to state, group fingers together where you can. It'll make drawing them easy. So anyway, that's the reason why that probably put these two in this part. Whatever. Feet now. I hate feet. I don't draw feet often, but I hate feet. So the key thing with feet, God, I'm actually don't know how well I'm going to be able to talk about this one, but have the ball where the ankle goes, and this is where the joint goes, and have the heel in the back. And then again, if you think of this kind of like the front of the palm, basically where the front of the foot goes. Front feet are insanely annoying to draw. I'm probably not going to be the best piece of advice on this. I'll cover the feet. I'll just cover the basic shape of the feet first. Toes and stuff. But again, foot and padding. Key thing to note is triangular shape, obviously. And then you also have this little arch right here that kind of goes around all the foot and the heel. Just kind of connect this. I will stick out a little bit. I have etc. As far as toes go, key thing to note, I'm going to actually duplicate this part. So toes from over top. Feet are not perfectly symmetrical. They have like just like hands, they kind of have like a bias to one side. Think of them kind of like this shape, like a slightly angled flipper. So you have basically the big toe, and you have the little toes. That's kind of the basic profile right there. So if you're drawing the big toe away from the camera, big toe in the back, little toes up front, and you'll be able to see all of them. So, meanwhile, if you have the big toe up front, that's going to be the most prominent one. And the other toes are going to actually be probably hidden behind foot. You won't see that. So you only have to do the big toe. Just got to make sure you do it good. If you don't do it good, you're doing it bad. You're not first, you're last. And then doing it from the front, just kind of choose which angle you need to go for. Big toe, foot. Draw those 3 lines for the smaller toes. Remember, the baby toes are really fucking tiny. Those from the front are a bitch. Feet in general are a bitch. Not going for realism. One cheat you can do. Just bias it. And that'll sometimes be good enough. Depends on what it all depends on what your goals are. I guess talk about the bottom of the feet as well. Again, that. And then as far as length goes, feet are going to be about a foot long now. In regards to like the length of foot, that actually can vary almost as much as you want in terms of character design. Generally, if you have profile, for the feet. Again, I always start with a triangle, just for the basic shape. In fact, sometimes I will only leave the feet as a triangle, because I hate drawing feet. This isn't like, oh, feet are so hard, I don't like drawing them. It's like, no, I have the opposite of a foot fetish. cannot stand feet. I think they're annoying, smelly, and gross. I don't know why. But as far as length goes, really make them shorter as long. The longer you go, the bigger feet are going to be. Bigfoot character. Very small anime foot character. Key thing, as long as you have the arch present, it's all good. The only thing I would recommend is not making them more than like 2/3 the length of the foreleg. Really want it. More power to you. I mean, we've all seen those pictures on DeviantArt that are like by those foot fetishists that have like massive feet. Strange. So, I guess I can also go over shoed feet, clothed feet. So, bare feet. You're not going to draw bare feet all that often. You're totally honest. Egg. So, as I pointed out, kind of start when doing feet from the front, kind of like a weird triangular shape. Circle here. I'm going to put shoes on them. Kind of helps to kind of bell it out, a bell shape. This is honestly one of the most difficult and frustrating things to draw, is a foot from the front. So even I will typically angle my feet. Winds up involving a lot of subtle lines to try and represent depth, but it's very, very annoying. I don't like it. Like, even if you can do it, you'll try to avoid doing it because it's not fun. And still, that would probably be passable. Not the greatest. It would be passable for a front foot. But where you're drawing from more like a 3/4 angle, that's where things actually get fun, and you actually can show the full foot, or at least most of it. First things first, you want to figure out where the foot goes. So like, in this case, I'm drawing a heeled foot. Leto. Just draw out the profile. Then you can remove pieces of it. Decide on the shape. There. Now that this is side by side with the other foot that I just drew, makes the other foot also look better because now you have a reference image over here on the side to see what it looks like from the hidden end. And it also can kind of help you like figure out, hey, heel goes over here, so this is on a plane. This. Good to know. That is a very not straight line. The other key thing as well is to make sure that you just keep the bottom of any bottom surfaces like parallel with the plane that they're on. That doesn't mean like, since this is obviously on a plane like this, that means I wouldn't want to do a flat line like this. I'd want to give it a little bit of curvature because it's like a cylinder. And so give it a little bit of depth. Same principle would also apply if you're doing a foot from the side, closed. It's actually a lot easier from the side. Side feet are probably the easiest. Front is the worst. The key thing to note when also drawing feet in clothing, like shoes and stuff, you want to make sure that you're also providing enough space for the foot to actually exist. Here would be the heel, and toes would go here with the ball of the foot here. In this case, I made it a little bit shallow, so I probably want to make the a little bit thicker. Do that. So, real quick, I use a Intuos 4 XL, which is no longer in production. Yeah, then basically have a foot that goes. You can see that's where the foot goes. 4 women's feet. That's all I can say. Heels are very painful to wear sometimes. But imagine some women, they feel worth it. Power to them, because they look nice. Well, you see, you just gotta draw like a happy little robot titty. Make sure it's little. You can draw big ones if you want to. Okay, we're drawing small titty. Anyway, what else is there to cover? We've gone actually for about 45 minutes, so there's no more questions we can edit here, or if there's any other questions that patrons had, I can tell those really quick. Got about 15 minutes left. Today we've covered proportions, we've covered hands, and we've covered feet. One of the 3 big ones. Anyone? Try typing this out as well, just in case there's a delay. No substitutions is asking, how do I draw the back? See if I get anybody. Patreon stream, or in the Patreon chat. Now I will go over backs. Interesting. Alright. I will cover backs. So, one thing you might notice is that when I draw my characters, do my drawings, titanium, if this is basically a live art lesson, it'll all be recorded. It's Patreon funded and stuff, and a description of how it works in this chat. But basically, people in my Patreon server ask me questions, and I go over them in real time for about 30 minutes to an hour. And we're just wrapping up here. See, Hero is typing something. I noticed though, is like when I draw my characters, I don't like to do stick figures and I don't like to excessively use circles. I kind of draw this triangular shape. Hips down here. Here. Okay, so this is going to be a back. So the neck in particular will actually go flush with the back. Fine. Shoulders here. And hips. Butt. It's all important. So, backs are a little... Basically, I like to kind of draw out where the spine would go. Put that in there. Those backs don't really need too much detail. If you want to put a lot of detail on them, it'll wind up looking more muscled and chiseled. But That's only if you kind of want to do that. I have like a little here. Also can help to a lot looking up references for backs. Just because, I mean, backs aren't like, most people aren't going to be hugely chiseled and stuff. You'll have like little, kind of like, just like you have pecs on the front, you'll also have little dips and divots and stuff on the rear and things like that. I don't know. Personally, I always kind of felt like the shoulders, like the shoulder blades kind of look like reversed pectorals. If you were to have shoulder blades like really defined, they would be right here. Again, references will help you immensely on that. Again, references are good. References. Please use references. I'm actually using a reference right now to help me figure out what specifically needs to be done here. So yeah, that's kind of roughly how the back would go. You have shoulder blades around right here. Like the spine. And like right around where you reach the butt, you'll have like little ghost butt cracks, hip bones, like that. Kind of like if you're gonna have muscles and stuff shown, kind of like to curve around this way, go around to the rib. But yeah, to be honest, backs do not require a lot of detail. The most I would, or the minimum I would recommend, would just basically be a few kind of disconnected lines that show where the spine is. And go all the way up to around here. And out a little bit to show the shoulders. But I don't know. Unless you're trying to do muscles, you don't need to make the backs fitted. Like this would suffice. Like that. Well, yeah. Alright. And I guess one other thing I will cover is I will cover action lines really quick. Action lines are unique. So when you're doing gesture sketches, basically doing draws and doodles, an action line basically kind of decides which shape and what pose the character is going to take. So when you draw a character, you should be able to draw an action line through them to see what they look like. But when you're also first drawing the character, you should be able to also draw the action line first and then draw the character over that. So like some different character models are just a little example. Draw character A here. Hi. Hi. Very cute girl. And there. You drew an action line through it. Their general profile is going to look like it's not very interesting. Meanwhile, you have a character this. Even though the character is about the same proportions, you can see, oh, this is a sexy pose. Ooh, oh my. They are making sultry eyes. Pure. Blushing. Oh my. You can see that the action line in this case kind of goes more like that. And which of these looks more dynamic to you? I'm going to make this fair, and I'm going to give them both the same expression, because that kind of might bias the result. which of these looks more expressive to you? The one on the left that's a straight pose, or the one on the right that has a bit of curvature to it? Obviously, it's going to be the one on the right. So the one on the left, well, you're fucking stupid. I can't help you. But anyway, I don't really think you guys are stupid. I'm sorry. Didn't mean it. Anyway, one thing you can do is when drawing an action line, you can basically do it however you want to pose it. You want something to kind of be like recoiling. I actually do this a lot when doing fight animations and fight draws. Say this person's being kicked in the gut or punched in the stomach or something. I have an action line going like this. Just going like this. And this basically creates two contrasting action lines. One that's perfectly straight for the fist. Giant punch. Hey, look, more hands. And one that's going curved for the reaction. Whenever you have like really fast motion or really direct motion, it's going to be straight. Whereas if you're going to have reactive motion, it's going to be more curved often. Following the action. You have to follow it one-to-one. See this guy getting his shit kicked in. Ow. Ouchies. He's in pain. You can see there's clear action going on here. If I wanted to make this even more dramatic, I could even aim even higher. Oh, this is transform. This is one thing I don't like about Clip Studio Paint. Transform tool is really annoying. Big ass punch. Damn. It hurts. You can see that this looks very painful. See. Pain line. I don't know what you're talking about, Zenblade. And I don't use Psy because Psy is too dull. It doesn't do it doesn't do enough stuff that I want to do. I want to do very specific stuff. That doesn't really satisfy me. Clip Studio Paint has a lot of really advanced features in it that normally I was only able to get in Photoshop. It's like Photoshop, except actually geared towards digital drawing. It's pretty cool. I like that. So yeah, kind of basically a quick overview of how to do action lines. Well, you see, Psy fucked my wife. Anyway. That about wraps this up. I'm going for about an hour. Thank you guys for watching. I might probably cut the stream here, and I don't know. Maybe I'll stream later today. I might work on animation, which in case I don't know if I'll stream it. Who knows? I shall see you guys later, though. Goodbye, everybody.